I'm mad, y'all. This don't make no sense. This video is weird. Last time we talked about, this is the I think an interview where they're responding in some way, shape, or form. They had just got done with Barbara Walters. I think they're on a sort of press tour, and they got done with Barbara Walters, Katie Couric, and they're sort of trying to stand on business, and they're being grilled about pineapples in John Bonet's system, and my rant was about the fact that they don't know anything. So it's just like, what do you know? How are you trying to, help the investigation when you don't know anything? You can't ask anything. Like, this is the most removed people from an investigation that I think I've ever seen. This is crazy.
Urban myth.
Mr. Ramsey, you left the house to get mail.
That, I heard that. I don't know where that came from. Our mailbox is not outside. There's a slot in the door. There was a pile of envelopes at the foot of the door inside the house. I was desperately looking for another communication from the kidnapper. Phone, mail, I didn't know how it was going to come. I went through those envelopes to see if there was anything else from the kidnapper. We'd just gotten a letter, a 3-page ransom note on the back stairs. I was hopeful that there was another communication. My question is, why did the police do that?
Mrs. Ramsey, did you ever leave the house that morning?
No, I did not.
Mrs. Ramsey, the 911 call. There are contradictions about whether or not the phone was hung up and whether or not your son Bert came downstairs.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
At the foot of the door inside the house. I was desperately looking for another communication from the kidnapper. Phone, mail, I didn't know how it was going to come. I went through those envelopes to see if there was anything else from the kidnapper. We'd just gotten a letter, a 3-page ransom note on the back stairs. I was hopeful that there was another communication. My question is, why did the police do that?
Mrs.
What are you talking about, John?
Ramsey, did you ever leave the house that morning?
No, I did not.
Why did she think about that? That's what I was trying to, like, what? Why would you have to think about that? No, I didn't.
Mrs. Ramsey, the 911 call.
Now she's on alert. Now she's on alert. Now she's really thinking. She's not snapping questions off. Now she's on alert.
There are contradictions about whether...
That's that stuff that Burke was doing when I was talking about in the other video when they asked about pineapple. Now we are riled up about pineapple because when Burke was doing all this here and leaning back in the chair and not really paying attention, playing with origamis or whatever he had in his hand. But when they asked him about pineapple, he snapped too and he looked at detective. His eyes shot up and he looked at detective straight in the face. Now I got your attention. But when they start asking these folks about pineapple, all of a sudden, I got to really start thinking about what I'm talking about. I really got to start thinking, what is it about that pineapple? That don't make no sense. Y'all too shook up about this. Y'all trying to convince me. It's crazy that y'all trying to convince me. Like, it's a family-wide effort. All three of y'all trying to convince us that there's nothing to this pineapple story. And that's crazy to me. It's just a pineapple. Did you feed her a pineapple or not? I don't know how I got there. You can't deny a pineapple in somebody's stomach. Why are you trying to fight me on that?
The phone was hung up and whether or not your son Bert came downstairs and was talking. Some police officers believe that they could hear that on an enhanced audio tape. Others say no. What do you say?
Well, we have not heard the 911 tape, but we understand from people who have heard it that it sounds like a bunch of chipmunks chattering and that it is almost unintelligible. All we know is that Burke did not come downstairs that morning, nor did we say to him, go back, or whatever it is they say that it's said on the 911 tape. I phoned the police, called 911 from the kitchen telephone, wall phone, hung up, dialed one set of our friends, hung up, and dialed another set of friends and asked them to come quickly to help.
How soon after that 911 call?
She's lying. She's lying. Right here, she's lying. Because now her face is no longer certain. Now she's unsure. She is lying. And she's back on her heels.
Police called 911 from the kitchen telephone, wall phone, hung up, dialed one set of our
trying to think through the lie.
Friends, hung up, and dialed another set of friends and asked them to come quickly to help.
How soon after that 911 call did you dial?
You mean?
Now she's not shooting. Now before she was shooting back. I got my answers. I'm rapping. That's what I'm telling you. She's not shooting back. She had her answers. She was rapid. She was on top of it. How dare you ask me? I would never. They're supposed to be doing this. They're supposed to be doing that. Bro, you haven't read the autopsy report. You don't know. You don't know who's walking around your house. You don't know how anything got downstairs. You don't know about the pineapple. Bruh.
Immediately. So it seems to me like if you hang up the phone, you're not going to be able to.
And now you telling me that you didn't listen to the call to check back and see what people are talking about? People are telling me that it sounds like a bunch of chipmunks. Patsy, did you listen to the call? Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you don't need to listen to the call, huh? Maybe because you know we ain't lying. Maybe because you know we're telling the truth. Maybe because you know we heard. We know what a chipmunk sounds like. What are you talking about?
Place another call unless the phone is completely.
Look, this is another. There's been no logic applied to any of this case in my judgment.
Dialed one set of our friends, hung up, and dialed another set of friends and asked them to come quickly to help.
How soon after that 911 call did you dial the phone?
Immediately. So it seems to me like if you hang up the phone, you're not going to be able to place another call unless the phone is completely.
We don't care about that, Patsy. What I'm telling you is we heard you talking to somebody. That's what we don't care how fast you can hang up the phone and talk to somebody and call somebody else. I'm asking you, who are you talking to?
Look, this is another. There's been no logic applied to any of this case in my judgment. Again, if we were trying to hide something, we'd say, "Oh yeah, I remember Bert did get up and I told him to go back to bed."
No, you wouldn't. You'd be lying.
But the fact of the matter is,
They're grasping at straws instead of trying to get down to brass tacks and find this killer.
I would love.
What would we be looking for if you're not giving us no entry into anything?
I don't know why. I think they became so invested early on, they decided that John and I were responsible, and everything, if it didn't fit into that basket, then they discarded it. And they just went down that road for so long that now they can't, they're going to be the ones with egg on their face, and they can't face that.
Bro, I'm not going to say that cops don't do that. I know some investigations they do. They think they know and they spend so much time chasing that. So, I got to agree with that.
These are, some would say, reasonable, honest, intelligent, logical.
Some would say.
Well, look, individually, we've not met one Boulder police detective or police officer that I didn't think was a decent human being. What they lacked was experience, and they lacked leadership. There was no core wisdom that mentored these young detectives and said, wait a minute, boys, let's keep the investigation wide open. Let's look at the evidence. Let's let the evidence tell us who killed this child. Linda, you talk about the bias we were faced with. Linda Arnott, the first detective that was there all morning, said on national television, I saw it in John Ramsey's eyes that morning that he was the killer. Conclusion.
That early.
What'd you see in your eyes?
I don't know. I think she saw shock. I think she saw the eyes of a father who had just been told his daughter was dead, and she was lying in front of him. I don't know what I look like. I'm sure I looked horrible.
Mrs. Ramsey, going back to that morning, when did you realize that your husband had found your daughter or that something was really, really wrong even after the ransom note? What did you hear from the basement?
I heard John scream, just kind of this guttural, deep scream.
And what did you think?
I didn't know what to think. I was in our little den with a couple of our friends, and Fleet White came running in and dialed 911. He said, we need an ambulance. And I jumped up and said, what is it? What is it? And they held me back and wouldn't let me go. Kept saying, we don't know. I don't know what's the problem. And I was fighting and trying to get loose and to go see what was the problem.
Then what happened?
Okay. This is what's getting on my nerves. Patsy, the cops were there and told John the cops were there conducting an investigation. You knew why they were there. The cops were looking for your daughter's missing, Patsy. My God, your daughter's missing. The cops came and they looked, didn't find nothing. Don't know how, but they didn't. John looked, as you say, didn't find nothing. Okay. Then John looked, they said, I want you to take a second look. And then John came back. Oh, you know what? I did find something. Maybe there's a room I never looked in before. And he yelled, Patsy, what would you, and then somebody comes up and says, call the police. Patsy, what would you think if I went to go look for my daughter? What would you think I would be yelling about?
I went into the living room, and John was standing there with Linda Arndt, and JonBenet was lying on kind of this guttural, deep scream.
What did you think?
I didn't know what to think. I was in our little den with a couple of our friends, and Fleet White came running in and dialed 911. He said, "We need an ambulance." And I jumped up and said, "What is it? What is it?" And they held me back and wouldn't let me go. Kept saying, "We don't know. I don't know what's the problem." And I was fighting and trying to get loose and to go see what.
Why would they do that?
And what happened when you got loose?
I went into the living room, and John was standing there with Linda.
Why would John bring the baby upstairs and not bring it to where everybody is? Why?
Art, and JonBenet was lying on the floor, and he said that she was dead.
Mr. Ramsey, the police detective told you to search the house. Tell us about that, please.
I don't remember exactly when it was that morning, but we were.
There is no description that they are giving as to what what they said. You know, I know previously Patsy said that in a previous interview. She said, I got down and I pressed my face to her and I pressed my cheek to cheek and I prayed that, and they said, pray that, she can, be raised up and stuff like that. But when you ask them, it's a consistency thing. When you ask them hard questions, what would you say to the unaliver? When John brought her up, what did you do? When you got down there and saw her, what did you do? Like, there's no detail in that. There's no emotion in it. I would expect to hear, well, when I walked down there and my heart was beating, my heart was beating out of my chest. I opened the door and I'm just in this constant state of panic, of fear. I open the door and I see this white sheet, and I saw my daughter down there, and the first thing I did, my heart just dropped. My hands were shaking. I just walked over there and I just, God, please, this can't be. This can't be. And all I remember is yelling, because this is what happened when I watch these murder mysteries and stuff like that. People say, man, I just lost it. I just lost it. They don't lose it. They never lose it. They never describe losing it. They never describe being in a hallucinatory state in that way, to where they walk down and they knew of something, but they denied it, and then they don't tear up. They don't do nothing. You know what I mean? And that's just weird to me.
We're standing in the foyer of the house, and Linda Arndt asked me to take someone with me and go through the house thoroughly, look for anything that was out of the ordinary. Fleet was standing there, my friend, and we both went to the basement. And first went into what we call the train room, which is where we found the open window and the suitcase up against the wall. We looked there for glass, again, to see if we could find any glass, because the window was not only open, it was broken. Then I went to the room where we did find JonBenet. The door was latched. I unlatched and pulled it open, and knew instantly what I found.
Tell us about that, please.
Well, it was a rush of relief, but also fear, because her eyes were closed. I immediately took the tape off of her mouth, tried to untie her arms were bound above her head. I tried to untie the knot, and I couldn't get it untied. Her skin was cool to the touch, and I picked her up, and that's when I screamed, and because I was, I guess, just realizing that things were not to the touch. In the
living room, and John was
told you, the police officer.
This is why I'm having a problem with this section, because I thought John went down by himself. I didn't know somebody went down there with him. I thought he went down there by himself, as explained in the previous interview. I think it was with Barbara Walters, and on the 2020, I thought he went down there by himself and then came back up and then showed everybody else. I know he was down there with somebody. And then he's talking about the window was broken, as if somebody else broke it, when I think that he explained that he had broke it several months earlier.
This detective told you to search the house. Tell us about that, please.
I don't remember exactly when it was that morning, but we were standing in the foyer of the house, and Linda Arndt asked me to take someone with me and go through the house thoroughly, look for anything that was out of the ordinary. Fleet was standing there, my friend, and we both went to the basement and first went into what we call the train room, which is where we found the open window and the suitcase up against the wall. We looked there for glass, again, to see if we could find any glass, because the window was not only open, it was broken. Then I went to the room where we did find John Bonet. The door was latched. I unlatched and pulled it open, and knew instantly what I found.
Tell us about that, please.
Well, it was a Russia for lead. The door was latched. I unlatched and first went into what we call the train room, which is where we found the open window and the suitcase up against the wall. We looked there for glass, again, to see if we could find any glass, because the window was not only open, it was broken. Then I went to the room where we did find John Bonet. The door was latched. I unlatched and pulled it open, and knew instantly what I found.
Who locked the door, John? That's what I'm saying. If the door was latched from the outside and somebody had to take John Bonet in the room, how would you lock the door? How would you latch the door from inside the room? The door was latched. I unlatched the door. Are you saying you unlocked the door? Because that's what I'm saying. Number one. Number two, cops go through homes pretty thoroughly. Why would a cop miss that? And I'm not saying that they couldn't have missed it. I'm not saying, but cops go through rooms, go through houses pretty thoroughly. And if there's a door that they can't get through, they break the door down. I've seen it happen. They kick it down, whatever they need to do to get in. Or, I got the owners in the house with me. Can you guys come down? Did you know this door was locked?
Tell us about that, please.
Well, it was a rush of relief, but also fear, because her eyes were closed. I immediately took the tape off of her mouth, tried to untie her arms were bound above her head. I tried to untie the knot, and I couldn't get it untied. Her skin was cool to the touch, and I picked her up, and that's when I screamed, because I was, I guess, just realizing that things were not going to be okay after all.
And things never have been since.
No, yeah, they never will be. We've lost our child. It's never going to be the same.
When is it that you finally came to the reality that there are people who do things like this?
That day.
That day.
You read about crime in the paper and you think, well, there must have been a reason, or it's not going to happen to you. And you kind of, we see so much crime on television. I think we almost put real crime in the same category as kind of make-believe that happens in a different world. This happened in our world, and for no reason that we know of. I hope that I have never done anything that has made someone so angry with me that they would kill my daughter. We don't think we know anybody that's this evil.
But somewhere along the way,
but our paths crossed with this creature. Somehow we got in their sights.
Her hands were tied above her head, but loosely. He's acting like he struggled with the knot. And it's showing that like her hands were above her head loosely. So you wouldn't have struggled with that at all, my guy. There was no struggling, which means that girl was already unalived. Because if you're assaulting her and she's trying to fight back and get away, then I would think that you would have her hands tied a little bit tighter, to why would robbers come in, grab the girl for ransom, loosely tie her, and this is what I'm saying, don't make no sense. Loosely tie her hands over her head, assault her, then jump out the window without no money. That don't make no sense.
I think it was a random act.
No,
I don't
this
think
person.
And in that case, if we talking about that, we found some stuff in her underwear and we don't think it's John, then we gotta ask, what was Burke exposed to? I think that's a valid question as a child. What y'all got going on in that house that y'all not telling nobody?
And just walk by our house that evening, decided to come in there. This was well thought out.
What do you think, Mrs. Ramsey? What do you think happened? Did he
Well,
stalk you that day?
There must have been something like that. From what we're talking, we talk with people who have experience in this, and they say that it was premeditated, that this person knew of us, may not have been a close acquaintance, but knew about us, knew about John's business, knew that we had children, and I believe was watching the house that day. And when we left in the afternoon, he came in.
How long do you think this person was in the house, Mr. Ramsey?
They certainly could have been in the house for 4 or 5 hours while we were gone. I don't know when they
The
came
person
in.
was in the house before you left.
I don't think before we left.
I don't think so. I think they came into the house after we left. We're there when we came home. Waited till we fell asleep. One of our neighbors reported seeing a flashlight light in the kitchen around midnight, I believe.
The beam of flashlight shining.
I want to stop it right there. Because when we're talking about, this person must have known who we were, we're talking about Lockheed Martin. You mean to tell me that somebody just popped up in Lockheed Martin and just like stalked you and you didn't even know? We're talking about somebody who had to be very intricately. That's easy. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just gonna walk up in Lockheed Martin. You know what I mean? And just find out. Be like, you know what? I want to investigate the salary of that guy. You got to know a little bit about who he is and why, and that he has a bonus coming up. Right. And so even if you're a random person that walks off the street and you get inside, you get to his office, and you're figuring out, okay, I think this guy's loaded. We'll see. So you get in there to try to check bank statements, or try to check the bonus is going to be written somewhere on executive compensation paperwork. This is going to be a contract, especially somebody in his position, base and bonus. It's going to be a contract. You have to know where that contract is being filed. Somebody has to tell, either the secretary, his executive assistant, somebody has to tell you where that paperwork is. That's an easy find. That somebody would come and sneak in the basement. How would they know that? Somebody literally had to have time to be walking around your house. You're saying that they could have been there earlier. How much earlier? When would they have come? Because you can't just have people walking around the house and don't nobody see them. Now, especially in that neighborhood. Yo, you got money. People in those types of neighborhoods are always watching. Come on. That's what I'm saying. So this don't make no sense. Man, we're going to jump back into it. I'm going to keep on going with this. But the more I listen to this stuff, the crazier that it gets. This don't make sense. But I'm not going to rant on y'all. Until the next video, take it easy.